is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
These days, Formula One cars are a highly complex combination of electronics and batteries and GPS systems, cell phones, driver aids, you name it, they have them. They're lightning fast, but many say they're easier than ever to maneuver at the breakneck speeds they perform at. One iRacing series, though, out to remind you that not so long ago, the best in the world truly did reside in the premier form of motorsport, pushing the limit lap after lap, without any of those nonsense gimmicks. Today's weapon of choice, the Williams Toyota FW31. The year it was waging war, 2009, before any of that kinetic energy recovery system. Hence the name this series, so proudly sports. It's time for Batteries Not Included Season 2 Race 7 from the Twin Ring Motegi in Japan, and it's live on the iRacing Esports Network, presented by the Global SimRacing Channel. Hello everybody, welcome to another GSRC broadcast here on the IESN. I'm Jason Galvin. Johan Vandenveld is alongside me today. This magnificent, never maligned man, Sean Ambrose, is directing the action, armed with cameras locked and loaded by Dougie Beard. Johan, Honda built this facility because they wanted to attract not an international series, but an American series, an IndyCar, while Formula One, meanwhile, continues to race on the other side of the country in Suzuka. So what makes this track so unique for the Formula One cars?
A lot of things, and when you think about racing in Japan, personally, 3 tracks come to mind. It's Suzuka, it's Fuji, it's Okayama, but since its opening in 1997, Twin Ring Motegi is working hard to add a 4th circuit to that list. Now, like you said, IndyCar, but also cars, MotoGP, NASCAR, several well-known Japanese racing series all have visited this location. And like you mentioned, Jason, just like Suzuka, Twin Ring Motegi was built by Honda and was constructed in an effort to bring IndyCar to the Asian country. And as the name suggests, Twin Ring Motegi, there are 2 different racetracks that can be found here. A big super speedway and a 4.8-kilometer road course. Now on the latter, we'll see the Williams F1 cars compete today. Racing here is characterized by 2 things. And first of all, Motegi is very flat, with only some height elevation towards the turn 10 hairpin. On the other hand, Motegi also lacks a lot of fast-flowing corners, but instead features several hairpins or acute turns, and because of this, being smooth on the exits of hairpins is going to be key if you want to set yourself up for an overtaking opportunity. And to see how you do this in a Formula 1 car, let's hop on board the GSRC FW31 for a lap around Twin Ring Motegi.
Alright, we've got Reed Miller and the GSRC Williams, so let's do a lap around Motegi. Turns 1 and 2 are going to act as one corner effectively, but even though you'll be braking a decent amount, expect passes into here to be a little tough. Now we find ourselves on another long stretch down towards 3. Drift off to the right and be ready to brake a lot more than the first turn. It's sharper on entry, making overtakes more likely, but it's also a wider exit. That means the run down to 5 really sees some speed start to build up. Just like before, you're going to cross the circuit and get ready for your brake marker. 5 is the sharpest of this series of back and forth turns, and it's not uncommon to see drivers outbrake themselves. It immediately takes you under the oval into the outfield portion of the track. 6 is flat out, but it leads pretty quickly into 7 and 8. This set of S's tightens on the second apex, and drivers will probably find it tough to follow in the wake of the car ahead. That means the hairpin of 9 will be tantalizing because you'll want to try and overtake, but few people will be close enough to pounce. It also tightens a lot on the exit, so don't get too greedy on the power. Then we've got turn 10, which is one of the more critical corners on the circuit. There's a slight uphill, but it's pretty much a straightforward 180-degree bend. It leads you onto the backstretch, so making sure you don't get wheel spin or hesitate on the power will be of utmost importance. But while 11 is ideal for overtakes, you've got to be wary because there's a downhill drop right on the entry. Back under the oval, we return to the infield section and the final few corners. The chicane of 13 and 14 are probably the most tricky of the entire course with its awkward braking. Mistakes could set up a drag race to the finish line, but hopefully you've now finished a lap around Motegi.
And that is a lap around the twin ring at Motegi. And this place is mighty fast in these batteries not included Formula 1 cars. The Williams back in 2009. And this is round number 7 for BNI this year in the 2019 winter season. 42 laps on the docket today. These cars do run a limited amount of fuel, so you'll see one pit stop. There's no incident cap, and unique to the series, they do use the official iRacing points. So, number of cars, strength of schedule, all matter when it comes to scoring points in the championship hunt. And that is mighty important because we have quite a championship battle on our hands right now in this series, and it starts up there at the top with Thomas Ziegler. Clayton McLeod is just 9 points back though in second, and of key interest there in that 4th position, Mark Usher. The Brit has raced in just 3 events this year, Johan, but he's won all 3 of them, including the last 2 rounds for this series at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve and at Barber. Diverse tracks, so Usher knows he has some speed here as well, Johan.
Yeah, and also last season when we saw Mark Usher show up, he's always quick, no matter which track he races at. Now, of course, this standing has 2 of the 4 possible drop weeks counted in them. But even despite that, like Mark Usher, we said it last week as well, that if he just shows up, he's always a threat for the win. And with the 4 drop weeks that BNI offers this season, he will be a championship contender as long as he just shows up, because he's always a danger to grab the win.
Taking a look at the closing minutes right now of qualifying. We're about a quarter of the way through qualifying here in the batteries not included series. And right now it is at the top of the board, Scott Newton, and a mighty quick lap at a 130.628. This is on board with Mark Usher, who is yet to have a hot lap. As you see right there, is the first lap out. Was a little off the pace in 1 minute and 42nd lap, and Usher is about midway around this circuit here at Twin Ring Motegi. Johan, this is one of those straightaways you talked about. Passing opportunities aplenty on these long straights.
Yeah, especially with those long braking points, those acute corners, hairpins that you have all the time. A lot of possibilities to outbrake your opponents here at Twin Ring Motegi. We see Mark Usher now, by the way, swinging through the final chicane of the track, going from the start-finish straight. Let's see where he ends up as he crosses the start-finish line. A 125.7 is provisional pole. He comes across the start-finish line. He goes to a 125.0. So that is the speed of Mark Usher that we were talking about earlier. He is currently sitting P1.
Scott Newton right behind him jumps up back to P2 again, a 125.5. Thomas Ziegler currently 3rd, also in the 125s, a 125.7. Then Reed Miller, Chris Moretta, Alan Morgan down in the 128s. Everybody else has yet to turn in a real hot lap. Neil Andrews, Holder Gonzalez, Gomez, and Ryder Saunders, and Clayton McLeod.
Speaking about the ladder, he just put in the lap time. Clayton McLeod going to P4 with a 125.7. What you were talking about, Jason, that's really true, because we have 4 drivers at this point of qualifying within 0.7 of a second with each other. Mark Usher, Scott Newton, Thomas Ziegler, our championship leader, and Clayton McLeod, the driver that's hot on his heels. Very close so far.
Yeah, all drivers who have proven that they can win in this series as well, Johan. So there's no guarantee here. You talk about Mark Usher showing up, and every time he's shown up this year, he's won a race, but that's not a given. And on a track like this, maybe a little easier to keep pace with somebody with Usher, because you have those long straightaways and the potential drafting zones down those straightaways, as opposed to a technical course like Gilles Villeneuve or Barber, where there's practically no straightaways in one of these race cars. So if you have a car that really gets through the corner section, maybe a little easier to pull away, and maybe today we'll see a 3 or 4 car battle for the lead up front with Usher and Newton and Ziegler and McLeod, because you have these long straights that can kind of help tie everybody together.
Absolutely, we could see on few that drivers are opting in to go into the pits now, refueled a little bit, and put some new tires on these cars for basically the second run during qualifying. Clayton McLeod is not doing that, however. He comes over start-finish line, actually goes a little bit quicker The Canadian does a 125.4 this time around. And that brings him to P3. The gap between Mark Usher and Scott Newton has decreased, however, only 0.04 of a second between the UK&I driver and the Australians. Very, very close at this moment on top of the field.
And Newton is also on a slow outlap right now with fresh tires. Mark Usher's on the loud pedal, trying to get some heat in that number 8 car. Take a look at Usher on board with him right now as he works his way around this twin ring Motegi circuit. There is a little less than 4 minutes left in qualifying. Usher working his way right now through the downhill straight. To the right, under the bridge. Pit entrance is just off to the right-hand side right there. Through the final chicane and back on to the main straight. And so Usher will start a timed lap. He'll be able to knock off 2 more here, barring any incidents. And we've seen these cars get quicker as the fuel burns off and the tires get some. Chris Moretta is right behind Usher, maybe trying to take advantage of a tow. And of important note maybe here is Scott Newton is behind Moretta, so Newton might actually be able to get a tow off of Moretta, who he's much quicker than, and maybe increase his speed on one of these laps.
I know Chris Moretta immediately opts out, as you were saying, that to give Scott Newton a little bit of room and let him go by, because of course you can have the advantage of getting that tow in your qualifying lap, but at the same moment, if you get behind him in, for example, the quick final chicane or one of the little flags in the middle of the circuit, you can be held up, have some error push, lose quite a bit of time in the laps. And luckily for Scott Newton, he doesn't have any of those problems. Problems there are for Mark Usher, however.
Yeah, Usher around.
Looped it around. Yeah, he looped it around. It was on the exit of turn, I think it was turn 9 there. Just on the throttle, looping it around. Luckily for him, no damage, so he doesn't have to go into the pits, but this will warm up the tires a little bit. And this is something that I expect we might see a few times in the race as well, Jason. Just cars on those exits of the corners. They know this is so important to be smooth here, to be able to defend, to also set yourself up for overtaking opportunities. Maybe just asking a little bit too much of the grip of the tires and just going around and losing a lot more time.
Here's the time lap for Scott Newton. He'll have enough time to get 1 more in. It's a 125.475, so not quick enough to improve or to bump Mark Usher off of the provisional pole. Thomas Ziegler comes across 125.751, and that is Ziegler's quickest lap, but it's just good enough right now for the 4th position. Of course, you're watching this race today on the iRacing Esports Network, the Global SimRacing Channel, a proud partner of the iRacing Esports Network. Don't forget to subscribe at youtube.com/iRacing Esports Network. You can do it by clicking that little subscribe button there on the middle of your screen. So many great things have come out of the IESN. We're so proud to be a partner with them here at GSRC. Plenty more action coming up on IESN today as well. Stay tuned. Have a great Saturday of sim racing here as we're on board with Mark Usher. Scott Newton, it's important to note, he pulled in after that last lap and reset, so he is not going to get another hot lap on the books. He is out there turning a lap right now, but it will not count towards a qualifying time.
Luckily, he's trying to get over the line before the timer runs out. He has around 25 seconds left to finish this lap and see if he can do 1 more lap. Mark Usher goes over start-finish line. At the moment, he doesn't improve his lap time. Well, he does slightly improve it, 0.02 of a second. 0.02 of a second. Well, I think it's sure to say that Mark Usher is really on the limit now. With 8 more seconds, I don't think Scott Newton can get another lap, and he flings it around the final chicane. 3 more seconds, he goes over the line. Oh, this is really near the touch. I think that Scott Newton is just out and just misses his last chance on the qualifying lap. Neil Andrews is currently here. Yeah, currently going around the turn 10 hairpin. He is sitting right in the midfield, 3/10 behind Thomas Ziegler. Now, looking at the first parts of qualifying, I was almost afraid, Jason, that we would see a 4-car battle for the victory. Neil Andrews isn't that far off as well. He's only 0.6 of a second from Mark Usher. Pretty close, only 0.3 of a second behind Thomas Seeger. Let's see if this time around he can improve that lap time. Oh no! Fortunately, what we were talking about, on the throttle, out of the final corner, into the wall. That's the qualifying over for Andrews, who gets to start the race in P5.
And Scott Newton did pull off after the first couple of corners, so either he missed his time or he just wasn't happy with his lap. Either way, the only car left on the track you're looking at right now is Chris Moretta in the number 155 car, that beautiful silver gray yellow entry as he comes through the final complex in Victory Corner, turn 14 onto the main straight. Almost caught a piece of the grass, and that'll send you around. Moretta trying to move up from P8 right now, crosses the stripe. He does so. Jumps up a 126.773, just ahead of Reed Miller, so Moretta gets to change which line he starts in, but he'll stay in the 4th row, and that is it for qualifying here for the batteries not included round number 7 at the Twin Ring Motegi. And you can see as you take a look around now and some of the beautiful views here at Motegi, the oval track out in the background. This place is unique, Johan. We talked about it before the race and the pre-race there, and as you take a look at the aerial view here, and that it is a road course and an oval. It's not like the American tracks. It's not a roval. The oval is a completely separate facility. Awfully cool, I think, what they did with this facility.
Yeah, absolutely. And from this beautiful helicopter view, you can really see how those both tracks intertwine with each other. That thick oval racetrack going over the tight and swirly road course. It's very beautiful to see how they combined both facets of racing here together in one location.
Qualifying is complete, and here comes the cars on the grid for round number 7. Batteries not included series at Twin Ring Motegi for 42 laps, and Mark Usher will start up front at 125.051. Scott Newton at a 125.099 will start in the 2nd position. Clayton McLeod at a 125.128. Thomas Seeger at a 125.315 in row 2. Row 3 is Neil Andrews, 125.660, and Polo Gonzalez Gomez at a 126.558. Chris Moretta in row 4, 126.773, and Reed Miller, 126.792. Will start in the 8th position. Alan Morgan at a 128.639, and Andrew Adair Saunders at a 129.722. Just 10 cars, a small grid for the batteries not included series here, taking the green today at Twin Ring Motegi. How important is the start here, Johan?
Extremely important, and we saw it early in the season as well, with cars just going off the line, running out of grip and spinning it around immediately. Let's hope that doesn't happen this time around, when the drivers are of course driving on this very slippery Japanese asphalt. The start here will be quite important. There's not a lot of cars, so we mentioned it before in the season as well. Every position that you manage to gain before the end of the race will earn you a lot more points than if the grid was a little bit more filled. We're waiting now for Mark Usher to get his car lined up, and then we can get underway here in Japan.
Usher did this last week too. He made everybody sweat it out till the very last second before jumping onto the grid for the start of this. And there he is. Here come the lights. We're underway at Twin Ring Motegi. And a good clean start so far. Usher, a little bit of a bobble and some contact back there between Usher and Clayton McLeod. Clayton McLeod has front wing damage, and as a result of it, it's Scott Newton who jets out in front. Neil Andrews in second. Here comes Usher trying to get that spot back, and Clayton McLeod, the winner of the season opener and second in points, has slid all the way back to the 6th spot with front wing damage after contact as they headed down towards turn 1. Here comes Usher trying to overtake Andrews. He will do so and will now set his sights on Scott Newton, who's already jumped out to a 1-second lead.
What an incredible start it was, with several drivers having great starts. I think we can give Coldo Gonzalez Gomez and Neil Andrews the nickname of cannons, because the way they started this race was incredible. At the same time, Clayton McLeod almost seemed like to put the handbrake on the car when it started, because he couldn't just get his car going. He's currently driving with a little bit of damage in P6. A little bit of a split now with the top 5 drivers close together. Then it's a gap to Clayton McLeod with 4 drivers in close contention. Andrew Adair Saunders is driving around alone behind them in 10th position.
As they come down the hill for the first time into turn number 11. They call it the 90-degree corner for a reason. Under the bridge from 12 and 13 and into Victory Corner, the final turn. So we saw in qualifying that might also be named Defeat Corner by the end of this race. Easy to make mistakes there. And Clayton McLeod has peeled in, I believe. Clayton McLeod coming to pit road to get it fixed. But heartbreak for the championship contender. Came into this race just behind Thomas Ziegler in a battle for the championship, and you can see the left front wing is crinkled, and the front of that car will come up, and his pit crew goes to work to replace that front wing as we go back now to a battle for the 4th position. Polo Gonzalez Gomez and Thomas Ziegler, the championship leader, right behind him.
Both drivers have won 2 positions so far since the start of the race. Polo Gonzalez is not as close as we wanted to try and move, but look at Thomas Ziegler behind him. That's the championship leader. The DS driver is putting Colo under quite a bit of pressure. Thomas Ziegler was one of the other drivers that just had a horrible start, lost 2 positions, gained 1 immediately with the pit stop off Clayton McLeod there, but he's putting pressure on Colo Gonzalez in front of him. Going through the turn 10 hairpin now as we speak. It seems like the duo is closing on a new Andrews as well in front of him. A good exit here to try and move going into turn 11, the start of the very tricky chicane swirling bit at the end of the circuit. Then a bit too far to try and move in. You can see all 3 cars kind of missing the apex there. You can see that Clayton McLeod doing that as well last time around. I thought that was because of the front wing damage he was suffering with, but it almost seems like maybe it's the weather or something that causes D drivers to miss the apex there every time. Still very close, but also the battle for the lead is heating up, with Mark Usher closing down the gap to Scott Newton.
Back to the front we go, and Usher has filled up the mirrors of Newton as they head now into the infield complex of this track. And through turns 3 and 4, and they'll head down now towards the right-hander in 5. And then they'll go under the oval track here and exit the facility. Now on the outskirts of the oval into turn 6 and the S-curves in 7 and 8. One of the fastest sections of this track. Now down towards turn 9. One of the most technically challenging corners in Japanese racing is turn 9 here, as it's a full-on V, and then you got to get on the throttle and barrel down towards 10 in the hairpin curve. They'll come up the hill and then down the hill, and this is a good passing opportunity for Usher if he gets a run.
You can see Scott Newton there just completely missing the apex, going very wide. So luckily for him, he had enough momentum to keep in front of the car there, sliding as well there through turn 11, and this will give Mark Usher an opportunity side by side through the wicker escape. Mark Usher has to take avoidance maneuvers, loops it around. Let's see where Neil Henderson is. He gets past. 3 cars getting past, so Mark Usher, he seemed to be the quickest driver there. He's relegated to P5.
And I was just going to say, as he was scrolling through there, we're going to take another look at it. Gotta have patience, Johan. You gotta know where you're at on the track. And that last complex, 12, 13, 14, is not the area to try to go too wide. Newton had the preferred line, and Usher goes wide. And he did a nice job, I think, of not hitting anything there. But that could have been disastrous for Mark Usher.
It almost seems like Mark Usher was trying to make an overtake at the moment on Thomas Ziegler. Going into turn 4, side by side they go into turn 4. Yeah, that's easy pictures for Mark Usher, especially with the speed he's showing. He gets by there, tries to claw back a little bit forward to the grid, but like I wanted to say, the battle's not over yet. Almost seems a little few there. It almost seems like Mark Usher just got scared of Scott Newton still being there when he steered in. He tried to steer in, saw Scott Newton being there, and then tried to lock it up and steer the other way around. Luckily for him, he didn't get any damage, but like you say, Jason, it might have been better. Well, hindsight is 2020 to wait a little bit there and wait for a better opportunity. For example, coming on this straight. However, he did have enough opportunities. Scott Newton made a mistake, so I can also understand trying at this point of the race to just make that overtaking move stick.
Battle for second, and it's going to be a 3-car battle here by the time they get to the front straight. Neil Andrews and Gonzalez Gomez goes around as he locks it up through the final complex in turns 13 and 14, and so move Usher up another spot. He picks up 2 on that lap.
Just a little bit too much speed over Gonzalez Gomez. We go to a replay of the incident here. Just look how his car is behaving in the middle of the corner. He takes too much speed, scraps off too little before turn in. Just the rear tires lock up because of that, and he gets for a little tour through the gravel there. Luckily for Cole though, he doesn't get any damage. He only loses a little bit of positions, a little bit of time as well. He's now driving around the P5. He closely challenged as well by Reed Miller. Reed Miller isn't that far away from him. Who is there? Andrew Adair Sanders gets looped around. That is in the double hairpin of turn 2 and turn 3. Who gets by him? That's Alan Morgan, who was driving a P9, now is driving a P8. Clayton McLeod cannot profit from that. He closes the gap to the DH driver.
Another look here at Andrew Adair Sanders going around, and you see it's that double left. And turns 3 and 4, and it was turn 3 that caught him. Able to keep it going though. Mark Usher starting to pull in Neil Andrews. And also a battle now for the 6th and 7th position as Reed Miller has a mirror full of Chris Moretta. You're taking a look at that battle right now as they come on to the main.
Reed Miller last time around was almost a second slower than Chris Moretta in front of him. Again, Reed Miller is slower, so it seems like Chris Moretta really found some pace in the race. He qualified just in front, lost a position at the start to Reed Miller. At this point of the race, he seems to have slightly the upper hand, a little bit more pace. He's closing the gap now, very close to the turn 2, turn 3 double left-hander there, where we saw Andrew spin last time around. And the car in front of them is the car of Calder Gonzalez Gomez. He's driving away slightly a little bit, of course, with the pace that we saw Calder have early in the race. That's not surprising. These two drivers, this battle is really heating up.
Working lap number 6 of 42. And we'll go back to the 2nd position now. Mark Usher has caught Neil Andrews. And I mean caught Neil Andrews, and he pops out to take a look, and it'll be Usher going back to the 2nd position around Andrews as they come on to the downhill. And you see a couple of times, Johan, I'll just point out real quick, the DRS sign at the start of these big long straightaways, those signs are just there on this track. Remember, these cars do not have any DRS, no KERS system. This is purely on the driver.
Absolutely no gimmicks here, and that was completely a textbook from Mark Usher, the way he passed Neil Andrews there for the P2 position. Now Mark Usher is completely in empty air with Scott Newton in front of him. Let's see how quick Mark Usher can go in this empty air. The gap, or the speed gap between him and Scott Newton in qualifying was barely there, only 400ths of a second. Let's see how big a difference is in race pace. The gap over start finish this time around was 3.3 seconds. Mark Usher has to find a little bit more speed to try and close down the gap to Scott Newton.
And they were the 2 quickest cars on the track last time around. Johan Newton ran a 126.95. Usher went 126.92. So that's not going to be enough. Now, important to note, Usher also made a pass on that lap. But Newton seems to have certainly found some comfort and pace here and been able to click off laps. Although you wonder if he looks up at his relative or in his mirrors and sees that big purple car of Usher and maybe starts to put the pressure on himself to find even more pace.
Talking about pressure, Thomas Seeger, our P4 driver, just went off. He went for a very long turn in the gravel. This happened going into turn 7, turn 8. He tried to brake on the gravel. That meant that he had to go through a little trap for the Japanese countryside there. He came out just behind Chris Moretta, as you can see there in P7. So that's 3 positions lost for our championship leader, who was in a really good position with Clayton McLeod having his problems early in the race. We go to a replay of the incident, and just we see already there the aftermath. But you can see that with the right side tires of that car, he was on the gravel when he tried to brake, and that meant that he had to go through the gravel.
There's a lot of gravel built up there in turns 3 and 4 already. That's the entrance to turn 3 on the right-hand side. I've noticed that as cars have come through, they're starting to kick up the dirt and gravel, and so you got to wonder now, drivers need to start paying attention to that and adjusting their entry in turn 3. Maybe give up a little bit to stay off of all the junk that has come out onto the rumble strips there. As Seeger now rolls around in the 7th spot. Clayton McLeod, his championship rival, is still back there in 10th. So right now, a positive day for Seeger, but you gotta imagine he was a lot happier up there in the 4th spot, and we'll be back at 7th. Still a lot of time.
Exactly, but especially if you keep in mind where Mark Usher is at this point of the race, he's sitting in P2. Now, of course, he's only P4 in the championship battle, but the speed that he's showing early in the season really will put some pressure on Thomas Seeger and Clayton McLeod, as well as look at the lap time Mark Usher did. He did the quickest lap time of the race last time around. That was a 1:26.1. Compared it to the lap time of Scott Newton, that was only a 1:27.0, so 9/10 of a second won by the UKNI driver. He's really closing down the deficit, and if he can keep up this pace, it will be, well, a battle again like we saw a few laps ago in 2 laps time.
Come across again, and boy, Scott Newton, he got the memo that time, picks it up, runs his quickest lap at a 1:26.6. Usher still went quicker, 1:26.6. At that pace, we're going to have ourselves a beautiful battle for the lead here in about 10 laps. The pressure is certainly on Scott Newton at this point. Checking in now on the 6th position, and really 5th through 7th, as Seeger is still all over the rear wing of Moretta, and Reed Miller just in front of both of them. Now Seeger and Moretta both much quicker than Miller, but have both had issues in this race already. On board now with Seeger, one of the more lively liveries in this series, to say the least.
Absolutely there, going there for the turn 9 hairpin this time around. Seems like it's a little bit too far through the infield section. You of course have a couple of very fast corners, turn 7 and 8. It's difficult to follow your competitors closely there in these cars that rely so much on downforce. Through the hairpin you can close down the gap with 1-2 car lengths towards Moretti there. It's a good momentum, a good braking zone here to close down the gap even more. He does so, look at that. Quite a gap deficit immediately made by Thomas Seeger there to swing through the final chicane, and this is probably one of the best opportunities that he will have on the track to try and overtake Luke. But you could see that very loose there, and Thomas Seeger just has to hold that hard work for nothing. He has to make it up one more time.
Boy, that was an excellent save too, because if you go around there, and we saw it in qualifying, right, Johan, if you go around coming out of the final corner, you are almost guaranteed to find yourself into the pit wall, and that will end you.
Absolutely, like Motegi is also maybe characterized by having incredible amounts of grass, of gravel runoff. That final quarter, like you said, if you spin it around, it's almost certain that you will hit one of the walls around the track. We don't have to go to it with Clayton McLeod. We could see him make a pit stop early in the race. He's trying to find his way forward. He's currently driving P8. Went by Alan Morgan last time around. Went by Andrew Adair Sanders as well a few laps before that. So the Canadian is slowly making his way forward. And if you look at it position-wise, he's directly behind Thomas Seeger, his championship rival.
Take another look here at the McLeod's pass around Alan Morgan. This moved the championship contender up into the 8th. And again, it happens on one of the long straightaways as they barrel down towards turn 9. So take a look at Clayton McLeod, and he is just clicking off consistent lap after consistent. A 1:27.52 the last time around means he was the 3rd quickest car on the track behind our
sorry, Scott Newton is off. Scott Newton is off. Our leader loops it around this time, and that gives our overall lead to Mark Usher. This happened in the combination of turn 2 and turn 3. He went a little bit too wide, just under the pressure of Mark Usher. Last time around, Mark Usher once again won 1.1 seconds, so Scott Newton could see him get closer and closer. You can see it now as he's going to turn 2, turn 3. He just takes too much speed going into turn 2. Misses the apex, hits the grass on the outside, spins it around. Now luckily for the Australian, he doesn't have any damage, but this will really hurt his confidence as well, because he was leading this race until that moment, from basically the moment it started.
And Newton has spun again, and Usher is off the pace. Well, I don't know what's happening here, but Mark Usher was just driving around, and now he's found the speed again. Newton spun again, and Usher was going down the straightaway at 70 miles an hour, so no idea what's happening there. And Usher, I'm looking at it, and Usher, he just appears to just slow down. Almost like he was maybe waiting for Scott Newton after seeing Newton spin, and then Newton spun a second time, and Usher said, "Ah, never mind." That's the only thing I can think of, Johan.
I mean, that's a really good possibility there. That what happened? Maybe he had some hardware problems as well. The thing that matters in the end is that Scott Newton loses 2 positions. He's now driving behind Neil Andrews and Colder Gonzalez Gomez, who found his way back to a podium position. Now, especially Neil Andrews has just been so consistent this race. He's really impressing me. He started the race in P5, now driving around in P2. Only 2.1 seconds behind Mark Usher going over the start-finish line last time around. 2.5 seconds it is as it stands. So Mark Usher is a little bit quicker, but Neil Andrews is just really consistent. And well, he's showing the benefits of being consistent here today.
Leighton McLeod has broken into the 1 minute and 26 second lap range, by the way. The last 2 times McLeod has been in the 126s. The only other car to turn a lap in this race in the 126s are Usher and Newton, the 2 leaders so far. So McLeod has certainly found plenty of pace as he tries to reel in Thomas Ziegler, but that battle way back there, not only for the championship, but for 7th and 8th, is still a 17-second gap, it looks like, between the 2 of them. So a long ways to go before McLeod can see another car. As we go to a battle now for the 5th position, and this is Reed Miller holding off Chris Moretta and Thomas Ziegler, who has been right behind these 2 for about 5 laps now, Johan, and been unable to make a move despite being the quicker of the cars. He's quicker, he's just not quick enough.
Exactly, and what you just mentioned with the lap times of Clayton McLeod, the gap between the 2 drivers is around a little bit less than 20 seconds, but per lap the Canadian is winning over a second, almost 1.5 seconds on Thomas Ziegler at this point of the race. The Diaz driver just cannot find his way past Moretta and Miller. And I'm almost thinking, with 13 laps done in the race, what is Thomas Ziegler thinking? Because he needs to maybe find something strategy-wise to get past these drivers, because Moretta and Miller are killing his pace, and he's actually in danger of just being reeled in by Clayton McLeod. Championship-wise, that is not what he wants to do as driver. He really needs to find a way past so he can drive his own pace again and really consolidate the championship lead that he has at this moment.
Cars will have to make one stop, and it does open up quite a bit of strategy for when you do it in this series because of the way that the fuel is set in these cars. They run a 2/3, and so that means there's really quite a big pit window generally in these events where drivers can pull in either early on and want to run the car all the way down to empty at the end and maybe get themselves some clean space to pick off some laps. Some other drivers don't really like how the car handles on low fuel, and so they'll run it dry in the main stint and then come in. Also, of course, shorten your pit time the longer that you stay out.
Thomas Ziegler is looking feisty though. For basically the last lap, he has been prodding all he can on Chris Moretta, trying to make the car in front of him. UK and I drive a little bit nervous. Thomas Ziegler looks quick, but like we were mentioning, Jason, he just cannot find a way past. Coming out of turn 3 here, look at the gap between them. There's like 5, 6, 7 car lengths between the 2. Now under braking, he completely closes that gap, Thomas Ziegler, but he cannot find a way to get his car side by side and actually finish the move. He's just all look, but not really actually doing it at this point for Thomas. At the same time, Reed Miller in front of him. He started, of course, from this trio of drivers the furthest back. He started at P8, while Chris Moretta started in 7th. Thomas Ziegler started the race in P4. Reed Miller is just quietly closing his, driving his laps. He's not being put under pressure by Chris Moretta. Chris is not really putting any dummies. Ooh, as Chris Moretta gets very loose down the exit of turn 10. Twice he had to save it. Thomas Ziegler is very close in the draft. Takes a look on the inside, under braking. Brakes a lot earlier and he has to slot back in on the rear of Chris Moretta. He just couldn't get that overtaking maneuver stick on the inside.
I felt like that was the chance right there, Johan. Ziegler really had an opportunity to make a move, and Moretta almost goes around as they come out of the final corner. And this could again set up Ziegler for a big run down into 1, but he's not close.
He's very close now. I'm looking at the tire, the track temperature at the moment is 39 degrees Celsius. That's actually a few degrees down compared to qualifying. So it's not that the track is suddenly heating up quite a bit and making it extra slippery. Chris Moretta is just really struggling with his tires, the grip level that they're currently offering his Williams car. And that's really giving Thomas Seeger a chance to try an overtake maneuver. Once again, going through turn 4 here. Thomas Seeger is very close, but he cannot make it stick. Reid Miller in front of them is kind of extending the gap. I don't think it has been this big in the last few laps that I've been looking at this pair. Thomas Seeger is putting Chris under pressure, and you can see him there wiggle once again through turn 8. It doesn't seem like he's very happy with the balance of his car.
Meanwhile, Scott Newton up a spot back into 3rd while we've been watching this battle. So he got around Coldo Gonzalez Gomez, and Newton now, after making quick work of Gonzalez Gomez, is just checking out. And that not to be surprised. If Newton can click off some clean laps, then he will have a chance to run down Neil Andrews as well for the second on the same straightaway now. Mark Osher has just absolutely checked out on this field. A 5-second lead over Andrews, who just broke into the 126s for the first time. So did Coldo Gonzalez Gomez. So the fuel's starting to burn off, and now a few more cars starting to run down in that 126 range, although nobody is in the same stratosphere as Usher right now. It's a quick lap of 126.002. Last time around he went 126.2, and Scott Newton went 126.4. Taking on board with the leader, Mark Usher, who has clear track in front of him right now. We ride around Twin Ring.
This section of the track where Mark Usher is going through is such an enjoyable section of the track as well. Those fast flowing corner combination of 5, 6, 7, 8 and the high braking for 9. I really enjoy that part. You can really just feel how good the downforce is on this Williams Formula 1 car, how fast you can throw it into the corners. Just feel it stick and grip on the track. It's really really enjoy to drive around here. Like you said, it's really a no man's land. The car in front of him is Andrew Adair Sanders, where he's around half a circuit length in front of him. It will be a while before Matt Usher will encounter some of the lap traffic. In the meantime, the battle for P5, P6 actually is heating up. Once again, Thomas Seeger is just very close to Chris Moretti. He had a very nasty wiggle, Thomas Seeger, last time around out of the last corner. This time around it's a lot cleaner, so the gap between him and Moretta stays around the same. And Thomas Seeger just cannot find a way past Jason. I'm almost sounding like a broken record now at this point, but it is true, because every time he gets close, and once he gets close, he just doesn't have the final oomph to put this car side by side. Well, in the meantime, Reid Miller is just enjoying this battle because he is uncontested to P5.
I was just going to say, I'm most impressed, I think, with Reid Miller and the way that he has run in this race. He has had a mere full, as Ziegler took a big run at Moretta there, had a mere full of those two cars for, what, 15 laps now it seems like, Johan, at least 10, right? And has not made a mistake. Unflappable so far is Miller. Meanwhile, Ziegler has tried everything he can, and now you can see maybe getting a bit frustrated with Moretta and his inability to get around him, and he's starting to poke his nose in at different points where you would maybe not do it. I don't think necessarily looking to make a pass, but maybe hoping to throw Moretta off. And Moretta running a very defensive line into the corners, and it's keeping Ziegler from getting a big run too, because Ziegler is much better than these two cars on corner entry. But when Moretta goes and shuts the door on corner entry, Ziegler can't drive it in as far, and he's not getting that run out of the corner either. As we come through the final section, Ziegler tried to make a move through here last time and almost went around, as we'll see what he does this time. Well, that car is awfully light on the backside as Thomas Ziegler comes down the main straight, and he once again won't be close enough to make a move. In fact, Moretta going to pop out on Miller.
It was Moretta with a great line there through the final section. Thomas Seeger very poor, and you could see the gap between him and Moretta grow instantly. But like you were saying, Jason, you're absolutely right. Under braking, Thomas Seeger is far superior than the other two drivers. But on exit, he just cannot floor it down as well or as smoothly as the drivers in front can. And that's really what you need on this track, though. The braking is important, but he gets really close there to the rear of Moretta. Going on throttle, that's where you make the difference. That's how you set yourself up for an overtaking opportunity. It's just not working for the DH driver. The gap between Thomas Seeger and Clayton McLeod, we were talking about it, it has shrunk to 24 seconds. So it has basically decreased 5 seconds until the last time we talked it about 8 laps ago. It's not quick enough for Clayton McLeod to close down the gap to Thomas Seeger before the end of the race. But it will put him more and more under pressure. And Thomas Seeger knows if I make one mistake or if I spin one time, my championship rival will pass me and will finish in front of me.
Moretta with a big run on Miller here. He'll pop out, battle for the 5th position. Miller with a late braking, does a great job, and boy, Moretta got awfully loose. And Ziegler now will have a chance to poke his nose in and won't be able to make anything happen yet as they come back onto the main straight. Moretta, another big bobble, and the drag race down into turn 1 again. We'll see who wins it. Boy, Moretta pops out inside of Miller, and they'll go 2 wide through turns 1. And it's Moretta who comes out for now as they head down towards 3 and 4. Can Miller drive it back in? He'll try, and Ziegler to the outside. 2 wide through here. Look at
Thomas Seeger couldn't get by there, but he's still right behind Reed Miller though. Taking a look at the inside of turn 4. This time around, Thomas Seeger puts it side by side. Stays there side by side. Reed Miller is on the outside. He might have a little bit more momentum, but doesn't if he puts the throttle down like that. Thomas Seeger gets by him, but Reed Miller delegated 2 positions in a few corners. He's currently sitting in P7. Let's see now how quick Chris Moretta is in free air, and if he's actually able to keep Thomas Seeger behind him as he was doing until the point of the race.
how frustrated is Ziegler. He gets around somebody, but it's not Moretta. He's still stuck behind that yellow and gray car of Chris Moretta. Does get that spot on Reed Miller, and there's no question Miller has been holding these 2 up. Ultra impressive and consistent drive out of Reed Miller, but finally Moretta and Ziegler both push the pace and are able to get around as you look at them come through the final complex here. And Ziegler really closes the gap through there. Just so much speed for Ziegler in the slower sections, and gets a nice run as they head down towards turn 1. He's not close enough to make a move, but he is right back in Moretta's mirrors.
And the thing for Moretta that he has to watch out for now is that he doesn't have a car in front of him at this point of the race. That actually might be a little bit difficult for him, because we saw him get incredibly loose a lot of times when he was behind Reed Miller, when he was held back a little bit. Now he's driving his own pace as Thomas Seeger. Oh, very naughty there. Puts his nose in, almost parks Chris Moretta a little bit outside there, away from the racing line. Well done for Chris Moretta to just not give up there, not give the position, and just stay in front of him. That could have ended very badly, especially for Thomas Seeger, who basically gambled with his front wing there.
Into the V corner they go. Oh, Moretta around!
And this is what I wanted to say. Chris Moretta, once he was alone, now he tries to drive his own pace, but he was already loose when he was a little bit slower. This time around, on that quicker pace, he couldn't hold his car. He looped it halfway around and lost 2 positions in the process.
Another look. This is turn 9. They call it the V corner. It comes through 7 and 8 in the S curves here. And this corner is so difficult because you got to swing it wide, and then it's got a late apex for the straightaway. And if you don't hit it right or you get back on the throttle too quick, that will happen. And Moretta, with the half spin, got very lucky that he didn't end up in the Armco. And Chris Moretta on pit road. Comes to pit road. He says, I've had enough of the light fuel. The tires are heated up. Let's bring it in and come to the service of our crew. So Chris Moretta is the first driver to make a pit stop. Car goes up on the jacks. Down it goes. Moretta in and out. Good pit stop for Chris Moretta there. 9.1 seconds. So we'll pop back up now to the 2nd position.
Yeah, it's Scott Newton. It's Scott Newton following New Andrews very, very closely. The Australians basically cut down the deficit to New Andrews in front of him the last few laps. It was around 5 seconds when he got by Colton Gonzalo Gomez. Well, this time around it's a lot less than 5 seconds, so basically nose to tail. And we saw already another car just come in. It was Alan Morgan. Scott Newton is the next one coming in for his pit stop. He just comes in. He opts out to basically make his pit stop now. He gets some free air after that. See if he can pass New Andrews strategy-wise.
comes Newton to the attention of his crew. And you'll see that carp. And a quick stop for Scott Newton, 8.3 seconds. A second quicker than Chris Moretta's stop. That's the quickest stop of this race so far. Newton pops right back out, and he will cycle around, it looks like, in the 6th. So poor Clayton McLeod.
Yeah, Clayton McLeod is still behind him, and don't forget that Clayton McLeod still has to make a pit stop as well. So Clayton McLeod is really going to fall way down the order once he comes in for his pit stop. Now Scott Newton, as you said, Jason, he comes out in P6, but I think most importantly he comes out in completely fresh air. No one in front of him. Reed Miller is, but that's quite a deficit, around 7 seconds between the two. So it means that Scott Newton can just drive around his own quick pace and see if he can be quicker than New Andrews and maybe pop out in front of him after he makes his pit stop. Mark Usher, in the meantime, he comes in for his pit stop as well. That's our leader of the race. Let's see where he comes out after he refuels his car and puts some new tires on.
Usher got himself down into the 125s late in that stint. A 125.8 is the quickest lap of the race. He did it the last time around and then said, all right, let's put some fresh rubber on this thing and fill it up. And we do have a car around. That's Alan Morgan. Morgan running in 10th. Usher down and out. 9.7 on the stop for Usher, so Newton will gain a second and a half on pit road. And Usher comes out in a precarious spot with Morgan going wide again. Reed Miller there as well.
Yeah, this is great news for Mark Usher. Not only did he manage to beat Alan Morgan off pit road, he also managed to beat Reed Miller off pit road. So just like Scott Newton, Mark Usher has quite a lot of free air in front of him. He's chasing Thomas Seeger now. Around 3 seconds between the pair, but he has a little bit of free air, so he can drive his own pace, get his own quick lap times, and of course get used to that heavy fueled car.
4 cars have pit, 6 still need to do so, including your current leader. This is Neil Andrews, and you're taking a look at him as he goes up the hill and now down the hill in the longest straightaway here at Twin Ring Motegi. Andrews last time around, a 126.95. It was tied for his quickest lap of the race. Will he pop in here? No, he will not. He'll take another lap. So Andrews enjoying that fresh air out in front and enjoying leading some laps right now. Started in the 5th position. And currently your leader, as you can see, as he comes all the way down into turn 1, there is nobody around as Coldo Gonzalez Gomez pops into pit road from the 2nd position.
Just a little bit more about Andrews. He is consistent, incredibly consistent. Last 2 times around, 126.9, before that 127.0. He's really feeling the flow, and of course the fact that he's driving all alone is helping that. But Thomas Seeger, Coldo, they're both in the pits at the moment. You can see Coldo just getting underway. Thomas Seeger just coming to a halt.
Reed Miller also in. Scott Newton goes around Gonzalez, and Clayton McLeod comes out right behind Coldo. But again, Clayton still needs to pit a second time after getting that front wing damage at the start of the race. He has never recovered from. Well, he pops out, though, and he's going to go around Coldo. So putting a little bit of pressure on Gonzalez Gomez here, who now wants to maybe pop back on Clayton McLeod. One of the championship contenders has to now defend his position. We'll see if McLeod pops into pit road this time around.
I mean, if I was Clayton McLeod and I was fighting with Coldo at this point of the race, I would immediately go in for my pit stop, because this is only costing him time in a battle that really doesn't matter for the Canadian at this point of the race. He still has to make his pit stop, and going into the pits now will benefit him quite a bit more. Just a quick update in the battle between our race leader Andrews and Scott Newton. Andrews last time around did a 26.7. Scott Newton only did a 27.9. So that means that Neil Andrews is indeed distancing himself from Scott Newton for when he makes his pit stop.
Andrews still has not hit pit road, and he is back around and under the bridge and into the outfield section, I guess is how we'll call it here. He is out onto the outer portion of the track now. Oh, and Andrews' big bobble. That was bad.
Yeah, that really warms up the tires. That also loses him all those turns that he won the last few times around. I wouldn't be surprised if Andrews comes in to visit this pit crew this time around. Let's see, because Scott Newton last time around had to find a way past some lap traffic in the form of Alan Morgan. Because of that, the Australian only did a 28.2. Now, in comparison, that's 1.5 seconds slower than Neil Andrews. I don't think that bubble hurt Neil Andrews as much as it might have appeared on first hand. If he comes in the pits now, he might come out ahead just in front of Scott.
Well, that car is really skating those. We watched Andrews there go through the S curves and then the V corner, and now he comes through the final section. If he pops into the pits, this will be when it happens, and he will not. Took another lap for Neil Andrews, who is really running it dry right now and taking advantage of maybe having that fresh air and those quicker times and trying to click off laps and stay ahead of Scott Newton. Now that bobble cost him 2 seconds on that lap, a 128.6. Let's see what Scott Newton does. And Newton, of course, is still nowhere close to crossing the start-finish line. A long pit road here. It may not seem like it, but because of where you come in, you end up on the pit access road for a long time before you get to the main straight. And here comes Newton across. And that time around, 127.6. You're right, Johan, didn't hurt Andrews as much as we might have thought because Newton was still battling through some lap traffic. Mark Usher, meanwhile, ran a 127.0, and once Neil Andrews pits, Usher's going to be plenty clear and out in front of this race. So the battle right now is really... And Newton's around! Scott Newton spins! And he pops back on. Clayton McLeod has to jump on the brakes because of it. Here's Morgan and Gonzalez Gomez. What a mess this is.
4 wide almost.
4 wide.
Now let's see who it is. It is Alan Morgan, lap traffic in the orange car. Clayton McLeod on the outside of Calder Gonzalez. This is of course for precision. P3, P4, P5. Oh, that's so Spa memories there. Santa being overtaken. It happened now with Alan Morgan. Clayton McLeod is the one who benefits from that. He's following Scott Newton very closely, whose tires are incredibly warm, I would imagine, after that spin. Very close to Canadians on the Australian now as they're going through V corner turn 9. However, Calder Gonzalez Gomez, he wants to get that podium position back that he was thinking about early in the race, and he hasn't been this close in a while now. He can taste it with Scott Newton just in front of him as they're coming around the turn 10 hairpin. Things seem to settle down a little bit with all the cars stretching away slightly. But man, almost 4 wide going there on the straight towards turn 4. That was very, very hectic.
Poor Alan Morgan there probably felt like a spoonful of peanut butter in the middle of a dog pound. Everywhere he looked, oh, Clayton McLeod peels off into pit.
We were waiting for this, and especially when it's getting that busy, you want to make that pit stop. Clayton McLeod is coming in now. However, our race leader, Neil Andrews, he's still turning around, and he will love to see what happened with Scott Newton in his F3 window, because this means that Neil will be quite comfortably in front of Scott when he makes his pit stop in P2.
Neil Andrews is still the only car not to hit pit road, and he is your leader right now by 17 seconds over Mark Usher, who will definitely cycle around to the lead, barring any... And it's now Newton and Gonzalez Gomez that we'll have to keep an eye on. And if we just look at the pit lane delta alone, because of that spin by Newton, Neil Andrews should pop back out in the second position. And he is going to take another lap here, and why not?
Just a quick update about McLeod. He's currently driving a P8, around 10 seconds behind Chris Moretta. Now, just doing a quick calculation with the amount of laps left, he needs to win around 1 second per lap to be able to put his car on the rear of Chris Moretta and try to get P7 away from Chris. At the same time, Reed Miller is not that far in front of Chris Moretta as well. So I think that if Clayton McLeod can drive the pace that he's been showing earlier in the season and also in past seasons, he might be able to get P6 in the end by passing Chris and Reed before the race is over.
You'd have to imagine that would be best case scenario with his championship rival Thomas Ziegler up there in the 5th position right now and not particularly close to picking up any spots. So if McLeod could limit the damage after that front wing issue on the start of this race, he would probably consider that a win at this point. Of course, when you get damage before turn 1 on a race, you immediately go into minimizing your loss mode, and that's what McLeod would be able to do if he could reel in Miller and Moretta. Neil Andrews comes around and on to the longest straightaway here at Twin Ring Motegi, up and over the hill and now down the hill into the right-hander. He'll go under the oval track, back into the infield of the oval, and will this be the lap he pits? It will not.
Wow,
the lap 29.
Yeah, exactly. You would imagine to make your pit stop right around the halfway mark, but he's already plus 8 laps on the halfway mark at this point of the race. This would be a very short stop as well for New Andrews once he comes in, with only 30 more laps of fuel that he needs.
As Usher battle for second, not really a battle, I should say. Usher just cruising in second right now. And he will, once again, easily cycle around to the lead once Neil Andrews pits. In fact, he'll have about a 12-second lead or so following pit stops. So smooth on the wheel for Usher. He's run this race without much of an... Had a half spin very early on, trying to get back to the lead after losing it from the pole. He did have that contact with Clayton McLeod. That's where McLeod got his wing damage on the start. Well, it was a bit of a mad scramble down towards turn 1, but it did not affect Usher's car. Andrews again. Into the right, into the final section. And again, we'll
still going out with lap 30 in the books now, or starting lap 30, he's still opting to stay out and continue his run there. Now one battle that's heating up a little bit is the battle for P3 at this point of the race. Scott Newton and Calder Gonzalez Gomez, they're actually, well, they're not nose to tail at this point of the race, Jason, but they're around 1 second separated away from each other. And this is mostly because Scott Newton can not follow the pace of Calder at the last few laps. Last time around, Calder was around 0.3 of a second quicker. It seems like the Iberian driver just maybe not as consistent as Scott Newton, but outright pace, especially in the second stint of the race, Calder can just really put down some flyers out there.
Scott Newton has had plenty of issues in this event. 23 incidents for Alan Morgan has 18, Calder Gonzalez Gomez has 11, and nobody else is in double figures. So you gotta imagine that Newton will look back at this event at the end of it and think to himself, if he could have just kept that car pointed straight a little more, maybe what would have been.
As you say that, Calder Gonzalez, that we caught it on screen, almost losing it there on the apex of turn 3. Just getting the car very, very slidey. The grip just almost gave up there. Loses a lot of time in that battle with Scott Newton.
Neil Andrews stays out again.
Wow.
Maybe he's just going to run it to the end. Is there something we don't know?
I mean, it almost feels like that, yeah, with the way that so confidently he's been staying out there.
It's that hybrid powered FW31.
And let's actually see where he will come out. We've seen pit stops around 30 seconds earlier in this race. So that means that if he makes his pit stop now, he will be around 13 seconds behind Mark Usher, but also comfortably 7 seconds in front of Scott Newton. So Neil Andrews is just really on his way to get a beautiful podium here. Ooh, as one of the cars goes around, it's Scott Newton. Well, it doesn't go around, but it has a very horrible trip through the last corner there. That's 100% a corner cut penalty. He is extremely lucky to spin in the first part of that chicane and not in the second part, because then he would have had a tank slapper into the wall.
Boy, take a look at this again. Well, you are sure right. Scott Newton, that could have been catastrophe for Newton. Here's a look at it as Newton comes into that final section. And this is coming down the hill into turn 11 and under the oval track, and look at this. That is not the line that you want to take through the final section.
Absolutely not, but more interestingly, Calder couldn't profit from that. Calder Gonzalez Gomez is still about the same time difference behind Scott Newton as he was before that little spin, so I would have mentioned the Iberian driver just to be able to close it up a little bit more.
Leader on pit road, Neil Andrews on lap 31 will bring it in. And the car immediately hits the jacks. Mark Usher coming down the main straight now. And so there is the lead back for Usher as he crosses the stripe. But Andrews down and out. And you talk about having a comfortable gap back to Scott Newton. Newton not even onto the main straight. So Neil Andrews played that perfect by running consistent laps. He got all the way down to a 126.18 on his last full lap before hitting pit road, and he has comfortably secured himself the second position if he can just come back out and click off 10 clean laps here. Doesn't even need to keep up the pace he was on. He just needs to run 10 clean laps. He has a 15-second gap back to Newton and Gonzalez-Gomez right now. Beautifully played by Neil Andrews. Now Mark Usher has to be looking up because Andrews was so quick on low fuel. Usher cannot afford to make a mistake here. His lead is just 7 seconds, so one spin or off track and Neil Andrews would recapture the lead. This is really just exceptional strategy, Johan.
Yeah, absolutely right. I wouldn't expect Neil Andrews to have such a good pit stop, and you can just see that with only 5 seconds stationary time, he really closed on the gap to Usher and got a lot more space to Scott Newton. On track, however, we see the battle between Reed Miller and Chris Moretta. This battle has been heating up. You can see Chris Moretta taking a little look on the inside of turn 4 last time around. Couldn't make it stick as they're following each other through turn 7, turn 8, and turn 9 here. Chris Moretta tries to find a way by Reed Miller. Why would you say? Well, because there's a Canadian steam train coming. Clayton McLeod behind him. Last time around was 1.3 seconds quicker than Reed Miller. If Clayton McLeod can keep up this pace, he will be able to put himself in this battle for P6 before the race is over. So Chris Moretta has to try and find his way by Reed Miller once again before Clayton McLeod arrives.
Chris Moretta is going to have nightmares about the gray and blue livery on Reed Miller's car before the end of He has been staring at the back of Reed Miller, it feels like, since the first lap of this event. And remember, he finally got around Miller, and then Thomas Ziegler showed up, and the next lap Moretta made a mistake. He went right back behind Miller, and here we are 10 laps later, and again, Moretta unable to get around Miller, who has just been a model of consistency in this race. One of 2 drivers without any incident points. Usher, the leader, is the other one. So Reed Miller, not a lot of pace, but running around right now in the 6th position and holding off quicker cars because he's just doing his job. Turning clean laps, lap after lap, and you see Moretta is much quicker, but he keeps trying to find a spot to get around, and every time he gets close, the car seems to bobble a little bit and falls back. And Clayton McLeod, meanwhile, nearly 2 seconds quicker last time around, has closed in to the point where he will now be on the same straight as these 2 cars when they get around to the backside of this course and turn number 10 in the downhill straight, which is where they are now. So they come up over the hill, and here comes McLeod up over the hill as well. So Clayton McLeod now finally has something to set his sights on, as he's run this entire race practically by himself, just trying to make up time from that instant on the start as Miller and Moretta come on to the final straightaway, and you see here comes McLeod through the last section as well onto the main pit straight. Moretta popped out on Reed Miller, could not make it work, as you see there heading into turn number 1. And here comes McLeod through turn 1 as well. So this is going to be fun to watch as this race clicks off the laps.
Yeah, and one thing that Clayton McLeod will love more than seeing 2 spots in the distance is 2 spots side by side in the distance, because if Chris Moretta and Reed are battling like this, the Canadian will only close down the gap more and more quickly. Now, one thing you were mentioning is that Reed Miller is one of the drivers that's just so consistent and clean all the race long, and if you just follow it on track, you can see so beautifully the difference between the 2 drivers. Reed Miller is so clinical, so consistent, so secure in his movements, while Chris Moretta, of course, he is a little bit quicker, but he's a lot more twitchy, especially on corner exits. And I'm saying that Reed Miller spins it around. Maybe the pressure, or maybe my words were a little bit too much, because he loops it around. Chris Moretta gets by, and this is great news for him in the battle between Chris and Clayton McLeod. Reed Miller loses 2 positions and gets relegated to P8.
McLeod did get around Miller with plenty of space, and so now Chris Moretta with some open air in front of him, and Clayton McLeod on the same straightaway. Now remember, last time Moretta got around Miller, what happened? The next lap he made a mistake as well.
And let's see how he is if he's now in clean air. Luckily for Chris Moretta, last time around when that happened, he was followed by another car very closely. The gap between him and the car behind this time around is a lot bigger. Maybe 5 seconds almost, or a little bit more than 5 seconds actually, between him and Clayton McLeod. So that means that he is basically 7/10 per lap. He can be slower than Clayton McLeod and still be in front of him. Chris Moretta just has to keep his head down and just finish ticking off these last 8 laps before the checkered comes out, because he is comfortably in P6 and he should be able to get it home.
No changes up front. Mark Usher is just continuing to click off consistent lap by consistent lap, although Neely was the quickest car on the track last time around and has closed the gap to 4.5 seconds as they come across the main straight. Working now lap number 36 out of 42. 7 laps remaining, and there is a lap car of Andrew Dyer Saunders in the 9th position here, just in front of Andrews, and we'll see if Dyer Saunders can either get out of the way or if Andrews can quickly make work of him here. This is not the best section to perhaps try to make a pass in.
Looking at the pace that Andrews has on a light-fueled car that he currently has as well, he's just so quick and consistent. You're always wondering if Andrews maybe didn't have a wrong pit strategy, that he should have started with a slightly lighter car and then just make sure that over the whole race he's driving a lighter fuel load, looking at the speed that he currently has. Going through this quick section, by the way, behind Andrew, this is really hurting his lap time. All those quick corners, you're really feeling the loss of downforce there. The gap between him
gets out of the way.
The gap between Andrews and Usher still is 4.4 seconds, so it seems like Neil Andrews still is a little bit quicker this lap as well. I don't think the gap difference or the speed difference between the two is quick enough, but Mark Usher will notice this in his every time he comes over start finish as well, that he just notices that Neil Andrews is creeping closer and closer.
Back on to the main straight, 6 laps remaining. In round 7, the battery is not included here. Twin ring Motegi. It's been a fun one so far. Appreciate everybody joining us here on the iRacing Esports Network. Global SimRacing Channel. Battle now for the 3rd position. Scott Newton and Coldo Gonzalez Gomez. These two have been neck and neck most of the race. Newton keeps making mistakes. Allowing Gonzalez Gomez to hang in there with him. In fact, Thomas Ziegler now is at least in the same zip code, which he has not been, although it would take another mistake for him to be able to overtake either of these two.
And the interesting thing is that the pace that Scott Newton had early in the race is just not there anymore. He's consistent for sure, but he's consistently in the 127s, while Coldo behind him the last few laps until he reached the back of Scott Newton was consistently doing 126s, and he's just closed down the gap, trying to find a way past the Australian, going through the very quick infield section here, turn 7, turn 8. You can see the gap grow a little bit larger as they reach turn 9 here. Scott Newton a little bit wider through the 3 corner. You can see Coldo creep closer, winning a car length here, winning a car length there, once again through turn 10 here. A little bit whippy there, Scott Newton. They will lose him a little bit of time as well, but on the outside he had enough momentum to cancel it out to Coldo. Last chicane here, going through there. Coldo still behind it. Now he cannot find a way to close down the gap completely, but Scott Newton must feel this. Of course, he already spun around twice. This amount of pressure must not be nice at this point of the race.
And an update on the back half of this field. Chris Moretta spun through turn 1 last time around, so Clayton McLeod up to 6th with clean air now, and McLeod actually has only 8 seconds back of Thomas Ziegler with 5 laps to go, so a mistake from Ziegler and his championship rival could be right there. Here's a look at Clayton McLeod. Moretta went around all by himself into turn 1, and McLeod had closed that gap to about 2 seconds, so you know that Moretta was probably looking at his relative, and so once again Moretta and Reed Miller are right back to each other. Take another look at that spin here in a moment as Chris Moretta comes down the main straightaway, and you'll see Clayton McLeod was behind him, and Moretta through turn 1 Just got back on the throttle a little too hard, and McLeod goes right about.
Championship-wise, this... Sorry, Moretta is now being put under pressure by Reed Miller, but championship-wise, this is really interesting for Thomas Seeger and Clayton McLeod. Seeger was probably thinking 10 laps ago, like, I'm doing great here, I might finish only P5, but at least Clayton is all the way down in P8. But because of the spins of both Moretta and Miller, Clayton McLeod is now position-wise once again right behind the Diaz driver. So Thomas Seeger once again will just slightly increase the gap between the two in the championship. It's not as much as the Diaz driver might have hoped earlier.
3.5 laps left in this one, and let's go back to the lead because sneakily, Neil Andrews just clicked off a 1:25.895. That is the second quickest lap of this entire race, and was almost a full second quicker than Mark Usher, the leader, and that gap is now under 2 seconds and closing. Neil Andrews, with a second half drive for the ages, is now on the same straight and all over the mirrors of Mark Usher, with 3 laps to go as they cross the start-finish straight this time around.
I think that after the race, in post-race scrutineering, they will check if Neil Andrews indeed doesn't have a curve system on his car, because that speed difference is insane. Going that much quicker and that much closer to Mark Usher, who apparently doesn't have an answer to.
3 to go as they cross the start-finish.
Only 1.7 seconds between the two this time around. Ooh, Mark Usher is not liking this. He was probably thinking that he comfortably could drive until the end of the race. But the speed that Neil Andrews has is really something. A little bit quick up.
I was going to say Neil Andrews just clicked off the quickest lap of the race, 1:25.603. Wow.
Most importantly, 6/10 quicker than Mark Usher. He's really leading the UK now driving. I just want to say the battle for P3, that one has ended for so far. Scott Newton is quite a bit in front of Coldo, because Coldo last time around went wide in turn 4, had a little trip through the gravel. He's currently 3 seconds behind the Australian.
That last lap for Neil Andrews, a 1:25.60, was quicker than his qualifying lap. Andrews, remember, started down and he qualified at a 1:25.66, now running a 1:25.60, and closing in yet again on the downhill on Usher. There'll be 2 laps to go once they get through the final section here and onto the main straight, and when they get there, that lead is going to be down to just about 1 second for Mark Usher as Andrews gets back on the throttle, and some lap traffic, and Alan Morgan in 10th place is going to come into play here as well. That time around, Usher 1:26.2, Andrews 1:25.6 once again. And if he keeps this up, we are going to have a drag race to the finish for the win. Alan Morgan, look in your mirrors, bud. You have company and should probably get out of the way.
Alan Morgan is still in front of them. He sees the blue car of Mark Usher get bigger and bigger, but he stays in front going through turn 4 here. If he stays there through turn 5 and 6, that will hurt Mark Usher quite a bit with the downforce, lack of downforce. He stays there. Mark Usher has to try to make a move around the outside. Neil Andrews is a little bit too far though. What happened with Neil Andrews though? That gap was a lot closer.
Andrews had a little bit of a bobble through the early section, and Morgan gets out of.
Also there around Morgan, Neil Andrews lose quite a bit of time. Look at the gap between the two. It has increased to 1.8 seconds. So instead of 0.6 of a second in front of Andrews, it's now swinging the other way around with Mark Usher gaining a little bit of traction with only 1.2 laps to go.
Through the final section for the second to last time. Andrews really flinging that car around. The lead is 1.5, and that time by Usher runs a 1:26.1 to Neil Andrews 1:26.4. So that bobble in turns 1 and 2 really cost Neil Andrews. He's going to need a bit of a miracle to be able to make a move on Usher before the end of the race. White flag, last lap.
And he is quicker at this point of the race, Andrews. He is quicker, getting the gap down to 1.4 seconds, but it's not enough to only bring it down to 1.4 seconds here with half a lap left. He needs to be right on the tail of Mark Asher now to try and move into one of the hairpins or maybe the final chicane. At this point of the race, it's a little bit too far. He seems to be very quick through this infield section, though, immediately winning half a second to Mark Asher. Going through the final chicane, final few turn here now. The gap is under 1 second, going towards turn 10, Jason.
Boy, this is it right here for Andrews. He's got to get a huge run out of this corner. I'm not sure he's close enough, but they'll head over the hill and down towards turn number 11, the 90-degree corner. Andrews going to have to really sling it in through here. Usher gets through. Andrews as well. Through the final complex, 11, 12, 13, and victory corner is here, and Mark Usher will hang on and win his 4th race of the season, and the battery is not included. Round 7 at Twin Ring Motegi, holding on over Neil Andrews in a thrilling finish between these two, and now we'll have plenty of time to check back in on the 3rd position, and Scott Newton, who is just now coming through the final section of this track and will cross the stripe. Newton, a disappointing 3rd place for the driver who led the early portion of this event. 4th place goes to Colo Gonzalez Gomez. Thomas Ziegler comes off of the final corner. Your championship leader will finish in the 5th position. We go all the way back to the Canadian now, Clayton McLeod. He comes out and brings home a solid 6th considering the trials and tribulations he had early in this event. Final battle on the lead lap right now is between Chris Moretta and Reed Miller, and those two are nose to tail. You're taking a look at it as they come through the final section of this track as well across the last section, and it is Chris Moretta who will hang on over Reed Miller for 7th and 8th position. Everybody has taken the checkers. We will take a break and be back and talk to our winner and our podium. Thrilling finish as Mark Usher takes the win here at Twin Ring Motegi. And welcome back to the Twin Ring Motegi. As we head back here in the Twin Ring Motegi and take a look at the final results here. Batteries not in. Round number 7 is complete, and the winner for the 4th time this season is Mark Usher, and he hangs on by just over a half a second over a hard-charging Neil Andrews. Scott Newton comes home in the 3rd position. They're able to hang on over Coldo Gonzalez Gomez in 4th. Thomas Ziegler, the championship leader, comes home in P5, and his rival in the championship, Clayton McLeod, comes home in 6th. Chris Moretta finishes 7th, just ahead of Reed Miller, the last car on the lead lap. Andrew Dyer Saunders comes home in the 9th spot, and Alan Morgan rounded out this bit of a small field, 10 cars, 2 laps down in the 10th position. Well, we thought we were going to have ourselves one heck of a finish there, and we sure did. Neil Andrews able to get out and lead a bunch of laps, and was the last car to pit, and was running down Mark Usher at the end of the race, Neil. And it looked like maybe you just caught Alan Morgan at the wrong spot, and that was the difference in having a chance to make a move on the last lap. Congratulations on a great run. Was it the lapped car there that kept you from making that final move for the lead?
Yes, I think it was. Thank you very much for you know, the hosting and everything of the race. But yeah, I do think the lap car, there was nothing he could do. I caught him up right at the wrong point. But yeah, that was a shame. What a finish, eh? What a finish! What
a finish indeed! I tell you, we were sitting there watching you, and we just kept wondering, Neil. We're like, man, at one point I made the joke about you having the hybrid car. I thought you were never going to pit, and you got all the way to lap 32 before you hit pit road, and you came back out and you were 7 seconds back. And I'll be honest, with 10 laps to go and 7 seconds back, we handed the win to Mark Usher. We said, man, what a run for Neil Andrews. Going to finish second. He played it perfect. And we looked up with about 5 laps to go and said, oh, boy, I think we got ourselves a battle for the lead here. Just take us through the pit strategy and how you were able to find so much speed in those last 10 laps.
Well, I in practice, I was off the pace. I just couldn't find anything that the other guys were doing. And I was like, well, okay, I'm just going to have to sort of see how it goes. I thought, I'm just going to fill the car right up as far as it will go, keep myself out of trouble, and, you know, just see what happens, knowing that I'm going to have a light car, you know, sort of get to the end, light car. The tyres were pretty good. And then, of course, changed fresh tyres on with 10 laps to go, having literally 10 laps of qualifying pace when everybody else is on older tyres. And I think it played out at the start. I don't know what happened to Clayton and Mark. I think Mark had a really bad start. I just had a launch again and managed to make up. I think I qualified 5th and managed to make up into 2nd by turn 1. So that played in my hands. Mark come back at me. I led him through because I was on a different strategy. I knew these guys were probably running on 55 kilos. So I was thinking, I just need to keep my own race. If anybody comes anywhere near me, let them go. And yeah, it worked. And I think just having the tyres at the end just allowed me to make up so much time. I think Mark made a few little errors at the end as well. I think he braked a bit hard into some corners and lost some time.
Maybe so, Neil, maybe so, but still quite an impressive run for you. Congratulations on the 2nd place finish today, and good luck next week as you head out and pursue victory at Phillip Island. Always a fun.
I like Phillip Island. I'll look forward to that.
Congratulations, Neil.
Thank you very much, guys. Take care.
Neil Andrews finishes in 2nd. He's the only driver that we had pop in here for a post-race interview. So with that, we'll wrap things up here. And Johan, I'll ask you for your final thoughts on what was a thrilling race here at Twin Ring.
I mean, my final thoughts is that when the race got underway, I would almost say Mark Usher, Scott Newton, they're getting away. They are the 2 drivers that we can lock in for the top 2 positions. But in the end, I think Neil Andrews and Colder Gonzalez-Gomez as well, they almost sold us a dummy by having such a pace in the latter stages of the race, challenging for P1, challenging for a podium spot. That just shows that well, it's only over with a checkered flag race. Like, you really have to make sure that you have to pace until the end of the race. Really, really good fun today.
It was certainly a lot of fun, Johan. Thank you very much. And we'd like to thank Clayton McLeod for organizing Batteries Not Included series. You want more iRacing action? Subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network. If you're watching the stream live right now, you can click that little subscribe button right there. If you haven't yet, make sure that you follow along with the iRacing Esports Network and GSRC as well on YouTube. Subscribe to us. Great action coming up here throughout the day. On screen now, you're going to see some of the equipment and software that we use to stream the cyberspace into your place, and the original music that you hear here on the Global SimRacing Channel, brought to you by Eric at home and June Lalonde. You can see their contact information there if you would like to find out more on some of their great work. Batteries Not Included series returns for round 8. That is next week from the land down under Phillip Island, as we just talked about with Neil Andrews. GSRC via the iRacing Esports Network will be there to bring you all of the action. We certainly hope that you will join us. The IESN broadcast up next will be the Camel Series from right here at the Twin Ring Motegi, and it is coming up in just about 30 minutes. noon Eastern. So tune in for that one. Should be a great race. And there's some more GSRC races sliding across your calendar right now. Make sure you follow us on all the social media channels, the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter sphere. Head to globalsimracingchannel.com if you want to find out more about GSRC. Finally, on behalf of the entire crew here, Johan, Sean, Dougie, I'm Jason Galvin saying thank you so much for tuning in and spending some of your Saturday morning with us here. Until next time, race hard, race clean, and we'll see you on the track.